Hello, I'm Jack.
And I'm Martin.
And we are the Washboard Resonators. Welcome to our podcast, the Washboard Resonators Present. Conversations from behind the red curtain on vintage music and stories from the entertainment industry.
So here we are for another episode of the Washboard Resonators Present. And this week we're going to talk to Ian McWee from Diamond Bottlenecks.
And why have you chosen Ian, Martin?
Well, I think basically if you play kind of slide guitar, Ian basically makes the best product in the world for what kind it is. And he's based in Britain. He's a thoroughly lovely fella. Is an expert at these things. So if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you'll see now that I'm holding up lots of his products that I've got. I'm actually really interested to find out more about him as a person, but also to find out how he makes these things and all the famous people that use them. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's get into it.
Hello, Ian. And
hello, Martin. Hello, Jack.
Joining us. So we've got sort of two things here, which I'm really interested to find out. I mean, we want to find out about you and your way into music and also making, I would say the world's best glass bottleneck slides.
Thank you very much.
If I may be so bold. And how one runs that business and how one has developed these products and how one kind of sees the quality. So let's start at the very, very beginning. So where were you born, Ian McWee, and in what year?
Okay, well, I'm a very old person. I was born in Birmingham in 1956.
1956, okay. And so what kind of, were you always interested in music? Like, when did that kind of start to burgeon, as it were?
That started in, my mum and dad were never really into music. Mum bought, so back in the early to late mid '60s, my mum used to buy Beatles singles, all the Beatles singles.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
So there was always music playing around the house.
Mm-hmm.
I got into it when I went to secondary school.
Right.
Basically, you either played football and sports, or you got a guitar.
Yeah.
Or a drum. Sorry, Jack. Or a drum.
Thank you.
So are we talking sort of like late 1960s, early 1970s when
exactly
you
that. We're talking
guitar.
around about 67, 68, around that area.
So there's a big blues rock thing, was it, at the time, with bands like Cream and Hendrix. So is it that?
It was that.
Yeah.
So more and more music was being obviously on with Radio 1 and other radio stations playing more and more rock, and you could hear it a lot of places, and specifically going into the local cafes and places like that for a coffee or 10, and they'd all be like Rolling Stones or the Beatles or that sort of music on the jukebox. But back in the day, then there was, it tended to be it's certainly in the UK or in the Midlands where I was born and based. A lot of people, when they picked up the guitar, either tended to go more towards the soul and reggae, or heavy rock, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, bands like that.
I guess they were two of the most popular kind of genres in Birmingham. I mean, Birmingham's got a big scene. We used to have a big reggae scene, didn't it? So.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I'll say it was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, heavy rock stuff like that. Whereas I wouldn't say like a hardcore, but a certain group of us started to get into American Southern rock.
Cool.
Which was really my thing.
Artists like
Leonard Skinner, 38 Special, Molly Hatchet, those type of bands. Okay. Southern boogie rock bands, ZZ Top.
And then like the Allman Brothers, would that be?
That was the one that got me.
That's the slide stuff.
That's the slide stuff.
The genius slide stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. As soon as I heard Live at Fillmore East, oh boy, that was like, hallelujah. That was
right.
That to me was my hallelujah moment.
Really?
And so I thought, well, I'll go and get myself a slide, and mainly with Dwayne Allman being a glass slide player using his receiving pill bottle slides. I went into local music shops in Birmingham, bought any piece of Pyrex tubing I could, but of course that was on electric.
Yeah.
So for a couple of years, I was playing slide on electric. Okay, nowhere near the Dwayne Allman.
No, I mean, well, almost nobody's ever got anywhere near since, have they? You know, but apart from maybe Derick Trucks or whatever. I
think Dwayne Allman took it to another level. And although these guys are Derick Trucks and Sonny Landreth but the ones I call the young guns, Joey Landreth and Ariel Posen.
Yes,
you've heard of those guys.
Geniuses.
They're like the new wave that are coming in. But to me, even now, all these years on, as soon as I hear Dwayne Allman, it's like, oh, come on, nobody can get near that.
No, they can't. And that stuff, I mean, we're going off a bit off track here, but that stuff he does at the end of Layla, with Eric Clapton, is off the chain, isn't it? It's
without a doubt.
Crazy. If anybody's wondering who we're talking about, I mean, this guy had this very famous band, 2 drummers going around, amazing. And then the thing we've all heard a million times is that piano outro on Layla, where he's doing that really high slide stuff, and it's unbelievable. So just to sort of let's keep on track. So we could talk about lots of things forever. What about so you said you're playing electric and you're playing slide and you're into the kind of the Allman Brothers and that kind of stuff. So at what point are we now? Are we 14, 15, 16? What year? What kind of guitar are you playing at this point? Are you playing in bands?
At the time I got a cheap Japanese Gibson SG.
Cool.
But my moving point was, I'd listened to all the electric stuff, but I never knew that Dwayne Allman was a session player.
Yeah.
And then they bought the album out called Dwayne Allman, an Anthology Volume 1.
Yeah.
There's 2 tracks on there. One is called Please Be With Me by a small band called Cowboy. And then the second track following that on the vinyl was Mean Old World, which was a dobro duo, dobro and National Resonator with Dwayne Allman and Eric Clapton.
Yes.
That for me was the point. I thought, you know what? I want to do that.
Isn't that interesting? You know, I don't think I've ever heard any, I've heard countless dozens and hundreds of times over the years talking to people that people find their way into roots music through, you listen to the Beatles and then that goes back to rock and roll, and then you kind of, or Hendrix or Led Zeppelin, then you go back to Memphis Minnie or Robert Johnson, and then you kind of, then you find Charlie Patton eventually or whatever. But I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, well, I started with Dwayne Allman basically, and then worked back and found him and Clapton doing the duet thing with that's really interesting. But you're probably arriving at the same place that we all do. So you're arriving at Resonators and Bottlenecks.
That's right. As soon as I heard those 2 tracks together with Dwayne Allman on his National, it was like, what is that sound? Yeah. And where do I get it from?
Yeah. Well, okay. We can see where this is heading now, can't we? This is great. Yeah. So if we're in the early 70s, are you playing in bands and are you kind of having those kind of experiences?
No. Basically, it's just a bunch of us school friends in each other's living rooms, just jamming away together, putting songs together.
Were you having lessons, or was it self-taught?
All self-taught. It was all self-taught.
And then were your bandmates, we call them, or jamming friends, were they also interested in slide stuff, or were you the kind of black horse in that group?
I think out of about 5 of us, it was just me and one other guy who was into the slide stuff. They veered off into Pink Floyd and various bands, but we just basically stayed with the Southern rock, the American boogie Southern rock. As I said, ZZ Top, Allman Brothers.
This might be a bit of a random question, but so had you heard like lap steel guitar before this?
No.
Right.
No,
yeah. So okay, you hadn't. Right. Yeah, I didn't know if you'd been drawn to that before, but no, it's like just a new sound. So maybe if you'd heard a lap steel first, you might have got into that.
Exactly. That's right.
And the world would be a different place. Although you do some very nice, very nice lap steels. Okay, so as we move forward, then, so like let's as we like look at sort of your life before we get to the business stuff. So what So as we move through the 70s, what happens then? Do you ever at any point start gigging or playing out, or is it always just kind of like a hobby thing? And do you go to college or university? Do you study? What jobs do you take? I know you didn't always run a slide business, did you?
Oh, no.
So what happens as we move through the life there then?
Well, when I left school, I did a small, about a year's apprenticeship in the jewellery quarter in Hockley.
Right. Okay.
As a jeweller. Really didn't take to that, basically because the at the time in the 70s, the jewellery workshops in and around Hockley in Birmingham, they were like damp caves. And I had so many bouts of flu and things. And
oh, really?
Oh, yes, it was her. Yeah.
It sounded like a Charles Dickens novel now, is this?
Charles Dickens was probably better circumstances, to be honest.
You're getting consumption in all these mouldy rooms or whatever.
I've got images of like goblins and making.
Oh yeah. Well, used to go in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there used to be overalls tucked over paraffin heaters with steam coming off them.
Wow.
To get the water out, which had actually impregnated the overalls during the night because it was that bad.
Wow. Goodness me! So these are really disgusting conditions. So you don't take to jewellery making by the sound of it.
No. And from then on, I went into the motor trade.
All right, cool. In what way?
Not so much hands-on onto vehicles. It was more like selling car parts and buying parts in for work in the garages and the accidents, mainly accident damaged vehicles.
Right.
Which I did that for, well, a good, from about, say, 70, well, that was from 74.
Yeah.
Till till my daughter was born in 1995.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're working in the motor trade, you're dealing in car parts and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like nowadays in Britain, you have like Andrew Page's kind of places where they do parts and stuff. So you move on, and then your daughter's born in 95. And again, just because I don't know this about you. So while this is going on, all through these times, at any point, are you playing gigs, or do you have guitars at home? Are you joining bands? Are you going to see bands a lot?
I did join a band which did rock covers for about 4 or 5 years.
Cool.
But again, it was just basically to whet my appetite. I'd always wanted to play in a band, and these guys hooked up with me and said, do you fancy coming and doing some gigs? And it's about 3 or 4 years.
Nice.
But at the time, I was starting to so that was back in the early 90s, really starting to get into making guitar slides.
Here we go then. Okay, boom. Yeah. So we get to the 90s, your daughter's born, and then so you say you got into making slides. So literally, just from the very beginning, what was the formative thing? What happened? Was it that you couldn't get what you wanted, or people were asking around?
That's exactly what it was. Because going back to listening to these 2 tracks, these Allman on the Dwayne Allman anthology.
Yeah,
I sold all my electric gear. The 1970s Dobro, Nick chrome-plated Dobro, and I knew at the time that Dwayne Allman used a glass slide.
Right.
So I thought incorrectly that he also used the same type of glass slide on his Dobro. That was wrong. He used a metal tube.
Yeah.
But I got my Dobro, and I was going into the guitar shops in Birmingham and saying, right, I'd like a glass slide. There you go, sir. That'll be £5. It was Pyrex. Yeah. I'd get home and think, well, that's not what I'm hearing. That's not working.
What do you mean by Pyrex?
It's like a very cheap glass. It's very lightweight. That one.
So just for people that are listening to this on the podcast platform but not seeing it on YouTube, I've just held up a Pyrex slide. So I guess we'll talk about this maybe in more detail later. But Pyrex is this kind of very light, quite sort of what's the word? Like if you dropped it, you wouldn't necessarily break it so easily. It's the kind of thing you see in test tubes, or you see when you have glass bowls that you cook with in the oven.
That's exactly it.
This stuff that takes heat very well. It's quite cheap to produce, I believe. Easy to produce.
Why don't you let Ian tell us about it?
So, I just held up. So anyway, what I'm saying, I held up a Pyrex tube for the YouTube.
Let's just say this: you may have bought that for £5. It probably cost about 30p to produce.
Yeah.
And was that was the only thing that was kind of available? Was it in?
That's all there was back in the 70s. That's all you got. Either a Pyrex tube, which the technical term is borosilicate glass, because Pyrex is really.
I knew what that was. You said that.
Pyrex is the trade name.
We'll test you at the end.
Steel, that's all you got.
I guess the reason why you got this home and it didn't sound the same as, say, Duane Allman is because if you play these kind of very lightweight glass slides on, say, an electric guitar with very thin strings and an overdriven amplifier, it works perfectly well. But if you then play this on an acoustic instrument with really thick strings, literally, it's so light, the vibration of the string bounces the slide off in a very micro level, and you don't get the depth or the sustain, do you?
No.
So you went home and you were like, this doesn't sound right. So what's the next step?
Next step was I visited one of the guitar shops in Birmingham, the Discovery, and they got a lovely big section of blues albums. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking on these albums and I turn one over. I remember it was Furry Lewis.
Yes.
There's a picture on the back of him playing with a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Broken. I thought, well, that sounds good. So again, I went back into the guitar shops and said, well, I actually bought the album. I bought the album to show people. I took it into Birmingham and I said, I want one of those. And they laughed at me and said, oh, I've got this Pyrex tube. I don't want a Pyrex tube. I want one of those.
So this is the mid-90s and you're walking around shops with an album tucked under your sort of going, look, guys, just give me one of these from the picture.
This is around the late 70s.
Oh, wow. Sorry. So we're back in the late 70s. Okay,
in the late 70s. This is.
Oh, so all through the 80s and 90s, you're trying to figure out these better sounding kind of things, and then so the mid 90s. Then so back to mid 90s, you still can't get what you want.
Well, no. What happened was, I bought a thing. It's a like a bit of a skeleton rig which you put a glass cutter in. It's called a bottle chopper. You put it in the neck of the bottle. The glass cutter goes on the bottom of the neck. You spin it round, make a score mark, and knock it off. Mm-hmm. So I did 3 or 4 of those, and I thought, and that was the sound on the dobro. That was the sound. I've got it. I've nailed it.
Sorry. So is this something you've made or you've bought this?
I made myself. I had to make it myself. Nobody else did them. I mean, this is pre-internet days back in the late 70s.
That's what I figured. 80s. I guess there's not the demand there at the moment.
Not at all.
But you wanted it yourself. Cool.
That's it. So fast forward to the early 90s, and I'm playing gigs with this rock covers band, and I'm using my bottleneck. And people will come up to the stage at the end of the night and saying, where did you get that bottleneck from? And I'm saying, well, I made it. Because you can't buy them, I made them. Oh, wow. Can you make me one? So I ended up going around to gigs with a tin box with about a half a dozen handmade bottlenecks on.
Amazing.
In this box, and selling them for a £5 at the gigs.
Should have made them £6 more than Pyrex.
Yeah, that's it.
That's amazing. Making
more money at the bottlenecks than the gigs.
That's probably a very familiar tale for lots of musicians listening to this. Yeah, it's the merchandise. Yeah, so you, this is amazing. So I mean, is your wine consumption going up? Are you trying different bottle types now? Are you what are you experimenting with different glass colors and all this kind of stuff? Or are you not even at that point yet? You're just knocking bottles off and just flogging them.
Well, the bottles in the 90s up to around about the early 2000s are perfect. What you find in these days is a lot of wines are going into screw top bottles.
Yes.
Screw top bottles for guitar slides don't work.
No,
they're the wrong shape. They're the wrong glass. So anybody who wants to try it themselves, don't even go anywhere near a screw top bottle. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But the Italian Chianti bottles, the long neck Merlot bottles are perfect. Those work every time. And we'll say we've got a little bit of a circle, a collection of 3 or 4 restaurants, local restaurants, who hold on to the bottles for me.
Well,
we're going to pick up that once a month.
Let's talk. We'll get to that later on. I think that we'll get to that later on. So let's now sort of recap and then sort of move forward. So you just to recap, you have started selling some chopped down literally bottlenecks out of a tin, because people have been asking you for them, saying yours sounds really nice.
That's right.
And so you're going around gigs, you're literally selling these things to people. So how does it then become a business? How does one make that move? What happened?
The move happened at the Gloucester Blues Festival in 1993, where I met a guy named Richard Atherton, and another guy named Bob Rosman.
Ah, yes, of course.
Now, Richard Atherton at the time, in fact, I'd never met him before. And I was showing Bob Brosman this bottleneck. And he said, that's really good. Standing next to me was a guy named Richard Atherton from Malvern who said, I need to speak to you. I said, okay, well, where are we going here? He says, I'm just about to open a shop and become the UK's first national resophonic dealer. He says, I'll be importing the guitars from California. If you can supply me the bottlenecks, we've got a business.
Wow.
That's what kicked it off.
So you've kind of made a bit of a name for yourself by this regard, because they wouldn't have approached you otherwise. Were you playing at this festival, or were you just a punter?
No. Literally just a visitor. Popped down to Gloucester, and I say, it really is like 1,000 to 1 chance that the guy standing next to me, while I'm showing this bottleneck to Brosman, was the guy who was about to open this shop selling national guitars.
Yeah, so that's just real. So it's a real kind of luck kind of situation, that, because,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and so I mean, Bob Rosman is somebody that we don't really want to talk about.
No, we don't go
for lots of obvious reasons. But he sort of there's a video on YouTube where he's explaining about his slide, and he chopped off a bottle, a Metusa Rose bottle, and he used it for all his career, from what I understand. That one didn't break it and stuff. So that gig, he must have been using his, whatever it was at that time, as 25, 30, I don't know, 40-year-old slide or whatever, and probably 30-year-old slide, and you must have just been chatting to him, saying, "Oh, you've got one of those. Look, I do these kind of things."
That's all it was.
And at the time, there's nobody better in the world to explain the mechanics of resonator playing, acoustic playing, or bottleneck, the technicalities of bottleneck playing. So that's just a very lucky thing, isn't it? To sort of
lucky coincidence that all three people were there. Yeah, so I literally just took it down there to show him and say, "What do you think?
What do you think? Did he? I mean, I think we'll talk about it. Did he try it or not?
Well, we all know what he was like. He's a bit awkward. Yeah. He did try it, and he said, "Yeah." He says, "You've nailed it. That's it."
Okay, great. So the next stage then is that Richard from what was the name of that shop? I can't remember now.
But the guy was Richard Atherton. The shop was actually originally called National in the UK.
That was that's what I've heard it called. But then did it change the name?
I think in Worcester.
Yeah, and in Worcester. Yeah, so which is near to you in the Midlands and stuff, or fairly near. So
yeah, it's just one junction down the M5.
Yeah. So what happens next then? So what happens next then? So this Richard chap, he says, right, I want to stock your product.
Then that's exactly what
you're
happened.
Working in the motor trade, going around looking for bottles. So what happens next then?
Well, by that time, it actually, as chance would have it, actually was made redundant the week my daughter was born.
Oh my goodness!
So, that wasn't a problem because we already talked about the fact that I was going to be a house husband.
Right, that being decided, had it?
And stop at home and bring my daughter up. But of course, the thing is, because of that, I'm thinking now, what am I going to do with the spare time? And that's that's what really.
So it's just all everything's aligning.
It's all aligning. Yeah, all the ducks are in a row, as they say in America.
That's a good one. So what happens next then? So how like what's the next stage then? How does this become a business now? Like, right, well, do you set up in your garage? Do you get workshops? Do you just knock them off the kitchen table? What happens?
At the time, I was making them in my garage. The garden shed at home. Just using the stuff I'd used all over the previous years, cutting them off and selling them at gigs.
Right.
And then, because Slide and Picket really took off, instead of like supplying Richard with, say, about a half a dozen a month, he wanted half a dozen a week. And I'm thinking, I can't do this in a garden shed in January.
Wow. Sorry, and what's Slide and Picket?
Slide and Picket, National in the UK became Slide and Picket. They changed the name.
Right.
So it was National in the UK up until 95, and 95 to 97, when they unfortunately closed, it was called Slide and Picket. So then the same shop had two names. And so literally living within a mile of the Starbridge glass quarter, I thought, well, if I take this down and see if somebody can actually do these quicker than I can in my garden shed. And as chance would have it, I went down to the place where people were saying, oh, you need to go and see these guys. They're the ones. And I met Richard Lamming and Brett Taylor, who ran Red House Glasscrafts. And I gave Brett half a dozen bottles, and he said, come back in half an hour. It takes me an hour and a half to do one. Went back in half an hour, and they were absolutely perfect. Wow. And I thought,
amazing. Right. That's fantastic.
That went on for about 18 months, taking bottles in, and then I'd take them up to Slide and Picket, or by then I'd finished with the bands, obviously being a full-time house husband. And then I went into the shop one day, and Brett said, look, why don't I show you what to do, and then you can come in and do them yourself? And I thought, that's an awfully good idea.
Sorry, can I backtrack a little bit? By this time, had you already experimented with different types of bottles now? You're saying some sound better than others, or were you always using the same type, or hadn't looked at it yet? Or
just whatever we could get hold of.
Right.
Whatever we could get hold of, we were just using them. Clear, green, blue. If I could get them, I'd make slides out of them, bottlenecks out of them.
And were you paying, was it Brett, did you say, to do this? Was he taking a cut of it?
Yeah. Save a few quid for a bottle, and I say taking them to National in the UK, Slide and Picket, and then they'd go on display and be sold from the shop.
Amazing.
But the quantities that they wanted after a couple of years was crazy. And
I mean, it's amazing that they were selling, like you said, they went to, from say 6 a month to 6 a week, and it sounds like it was growing. So I mean, it's sort of astonishing to think that even there was a market that big, or there is a market that big. It's sort of, when you think about some of the people that we know and stuff, or you think about some of the Facebook groups, you see the same 15 faces going round.
Yeah.
But out there in the real world, there's so many people at home with these, that are into this stuff, isn't there? And it's and you must have seen that there's a market here. Perhaps this is bigger. This is bigger than maybe I thought it was.
Oh, without a doubt, because when National in the UK, as they were known originally, they just started doing mail order flyers. Obviously, they advertised in the guitar magazines.
I remember them in Guitarist, and when I started getting interested in resonators, I remember seeing their adverts for like Slide and Picket and all these resonator guitars and bottlenecks, which would have been your bottlenecks now. I was a bass player at the time, but I remember them just about.
Yeah. And of course, they sent the catalogues out and the flyers out, and people were going, a bottleneck? Oh, I can buy one. Save having to try and make one out of a dozen bottles.
Yeah, or go into the guitar shop and buy one of these Pyrex things that sounds like on an acoustic guitar can sound not very good.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, what people have to understand is, certainly slide players, when you're talking slides on guitars, electric guitars and acoustic resonator guitars are two completely different instruments when you're talking slides.
Absolutely, yeah, and I can attest to that, having visited your shop, which we'll talk about later on, like how good that first meeting was and how much it helped me. But we'll talk about it in a sec. So as we go through the mid-90s, so let's just keep sort of thinking now. So you've gone from the shed, then you've gone to.
I've gone from the shed to literally going into the workshop myself.
Now you're doing it yourself. So at what point then does it expand, or do you start? I mean, at this point, are you just dealing with Richard, or are you now taking out adverts? Have you now come up with a business name? Are you going to guitar shows or anything? Has it expanded through the 90s, 2000s?
None at that time. At that time, we were just basically making the bottlenecks, and I was taking them, not actually showing them at guitar shows, but meeting musicians at guitar shows. And the one pivotal meeting was meeting Kevin Brown,
right? Yeah,
based down in the West Country, and I met him at the Sheehan's Guitar Show in Leicester, and this is back in about 2001, 2002. And I showed him, and he played this bottleneck, one of my normal sliced off a bottleneck, and he said, "Have you ever thought of doing anything else in glass?" And I said, What like? He said, "Well, something like hand blown glass." And that was like a light bulb moment. So I went back to the workshop and said to Brett, can we make these out of hand-blown glass? He says, yeah.
Wow.
Of course you can.
So
Who
in
is
all this
Kevin
time,
Brown?
Kevin Brown's a slide guitar. He's a excellent musician, slide guitarist. He's based down in just outside Bath. So if you kevinbrownmusic.com, if anyone wants to Google him up. Fantastic player, great touch on a slide guitar,
Right.
Great songwriter. And I say it was literally Kevin that said, have you ever thought of doing the hand-blown stuff?
Amazing. And you're right
That was
by
our
that
next
glass
stage.
centre, aren't you? So it's yeah, again, things aligning really.
So your business kind of expands now because there's sort of like two lines, like and there are sort of two lines now, aren't there? There are, again, for the YouTube, I'm holding up, like, I've got some of yours that are chopped off of
That's chopped off the bottles
here, and then we've got some of these hand-blown ones where you get, and I've been at your place when the tubes arrive, these really long tubes arrive,
yeah.
And then you and what's really great is you can sort of find which part of the tube, because they kind of not, you know, different parts are different kind of thicknesses, whatever. You can chop bits out people, you can sort of custom do stuff. So you get these two kind of lines of things now. What's the first time you get one of these hand blown bits and you try it on a guitar, maybe yourself or your pals come and try it out, and you go, oh goodness me, this sounds bigger than a glass. You know, is there like a light bulb eureka moment where you try that hand blown for the first time and go, oh my goodness, this
well, it was
massive.
Really the first one we got. We actually got a couple of tubes in to test and sent them to, some to Kevin and a couple of other guys, basically acoustic and resonator slide players. And we just got the feedback to say, we don't know what you've got here, but whatever it is, it's working.
Oh, that's brilliant. So,
yeah.
and there's probably, I mean, this, is it fair to say perhaps that had there ever been any hand-blown kind of slides made prior to that?
No.
Like, no. So where are we now? In the early 2000s or the late
early
90s?
2000s.
Early 2000s, and for the first time ever, this very, heavyweight, very, very beautifully made crystal glass, which is the kind of glass that it is, lead crystal glass. Somebody gets to put these on a resonator guitar, and it's like, just for anybody that's listening to this that maybe doesn't understand, like, often when you play resonator guitars with like cheaper slides, you play the guitar open, so you're not fretting anything, and it sounds massive. And as you use the slide on the strings, it usually, especially with Pyrex, the notes are just considerably quieter and don't sustain. When you use one of your amazing crystal glass ones, these like crystal heavy ones, everything's even. It's the volume you get from an open string you get when you're using the slide. It sounds and then different glass colors sound different. Like you get different frequency responses. Some are really bassy and fat, and some are, very clear and middly and stuff. So like somebody at some point is the first person to try this and goes, oof, this is spectacular. This is massive.
That's right.
You must have been really happy about that, really excited. I don't know, like did fires spread around the resonator world? Oh my goodness, Ian in Starbridge has got these magic.
Yeah, it did. We sent a few down to the acoustic centre in Wapping in London.
Yes.
And 2 or 3 of the guys there tried them. And of course, again, this is going to early 2000. By then, the acoustic centre had actually taken on the whole of the National Resophonic dealership. So instead of like being a slide at National in the UK with about a half a dozen, they got like a wall of 30. And that was the place where your resonator players went, and God bless them, they said, right, if you want one of those, you need to try one of these.
Yes.
And of course they'd got a big selection, and it literally, and by that time around about the early 2001, 2002, we'd actually got our first website up, and that's when the World Wide Web started to take notice.
Yeah, that was very early days. So there's kind of probably like a prairie fire thing here. So there's word of mouth, people that are searching out resonators, are trying a piece of your glass and going, my goodness, I've never heard a resonator sound so good. And so at this point now, early 2000, you've got a website. So is it the case now that orders are coming from all over the world? And how many are you selling a week? Like what's a rough idea at this point?
At the early days, they're going out around about 3 or 4 off the internet, because again, with the website, it's early days, and at that time there was no Facebook, there was no social media, so it was like somebody going onto the early Google and going, okay, glass guitar slides, what have we got?
Yeah, and they find you.
And because if they went on, if somebody typed in a certain keyword, say custom guitar slides or heavy glass guitar slides, we would always pop up on the top of page 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really started the ball rolling then.
I wanted to ask a scientific question. So what have you found out now, or what do you know about the different thicknesses and color of slides? Does something relate to a better sound?
Well, with the lead crystal, the difference in sound is really governed by the wall thickness. The heavier the slide, the thicker the slide, the warmer. There you go. The heavier slides, the thicker wall slides, which have got more weight, give a more rounder, fuller, warmer tone. The thinner ones still work better than any Pyrex piece you can buy. But that's mainly the colours of the hand blown slides doesn't really change much of the tone. It's really in the wall thickness.
And so did you experiment with them? There must be a limit to how thick it can get before it doesn't sound good anymore.
We never tried. I must admit, we've got a piece in our shop now which is about a 1/2 inch thick.
Wow.
So next time you're down our way, you'll have to try it out.
We'll try that one. They becomes like a practical point, doesn't they? Like I've got, again, just we can see it if it's on the YouTube, but I've got the like one of your sort of thinner lead crystal ones that I'm holding up now, and then one of the thicker green ones. Now I love the sound of the green one, but what you find is as it gets so thick, as you're fretting and then just moving your hand around to fret chords without using the slide, you do start to rattle on the sides of the frets a little bit. Like as it gets thicker, you've got to be your technique's got to be a lot better perhaps than one of the thinner ones, but the sound is incredible. So it's just, I guess if anybody's listening to this that's maybe looking at getting one of your slides, it's just, it's something you can learn. Yeah, so the hand blown ones, just again, this is something you told me on the phone, which might be a nice thing just again to share for people that might be listening to this. So the way that you was telling me, the way that you tell which one's which is if I'm for the YouTube people, I'm holding up one of the glass bottlenecks now that was literally a bottle. You'll see that it's green all the way through because it's got that
those oxides,
iron oxide in that, isn't it? Which so that's literally oxide. It's gone green because that's what because it rusts basically. And then one of the hand blown ones is completely transparent, so they're completely transparent tubes, and the way you get the color in this case is that beautiful like green kind of striated kind of thing. That's on the inside, isn't it? So that's applied as a finish on the inside of the tube, and then when you see it, it looks like it's all green, but actually if you look face on, it's a clear transparent tube. And it's funny, isn't it, Jack? Because Jack's asking about the sound difference of these. And I know Jack's sort of for a washboard player and a drummer, he's kind of interested in this. When we came to you that first time, and I was searching for you, I was searching for your product, but I didn't necessarily know it was you but we were coming down to Starbridge to play, and I was like, I booked in with you. I remember that first time taking my tricone into your workshop, and you just getting different lengths of your kind of hand blowns out, and I sent to Jack on the way, like driving down, like, well, I think these things are meant to sound different and it's meant to make quite a big difference. And then I remember probably changing to like maybe by the third piece of glass that I changed to, even Jack was like leaning, going, whoa, now try that one, try that one. Whoa, that one sounds massive. Whoa, that one. Then there was like a really thick black one that you gave me. And then it was massive. Like even the guitar was like rumbling my body. And it was like, even Jack was going like, flip, I don't want to swear, but like, fucking hell, that's really making a difference, is that? And it's like, I know. And I think I walked out with 2 or 3, and I've got a bunch now, and I need to buy some more when all the coronavirus is still reserved. We'll come and get some more of it. But yeah, it really does make a difference. And even Jack, as a lowly washboard player, can attest. It really sound different, don't they? And get different things out of the guitars, these things.
Oh, without a doubt. Again, it can be something minute, like you'd be playing like a 6mm wall thickness. Or like that green one, which is one of the big ones, a 7mm. Yeah. Just that slight glass thickness can, if you're like an experienced player like yourself, you will hear that difference, even with just a 1mm wall thickness difference.
I was shocked, and that first time I was surprised. Like I was actually like I had to second guess myself for about the first minute. I had to go back to be different pieces of glass and be like, oh no, it really does sound like different, and it's astonishing. And what's really, I mean, again, this is maybe something we can talk about with the way you run the business. What's really nice is I don't think there's anybody out in the world as friendly or as helpful as yourself.
Oh, thank you.
And no, but I mean it sincerely. I mean it. And like, what's kind of nice is that you're always there to sort of help with advice. But what I found was really, really helpful is I purposefully didn't maybe order online from you, because I was like, this is quite a lot of choice around it, and it was difficult to know what to do. And because I know that loads of famous people have used your slides, I was like, I don't want to bother him. I'm just a guy who's doing my thing. So when we happened to be coming down to the town to play and we called in, what was astonishing is that you just completely, and I know you do this for anybody else, is you just receive people in, say, right, just bring your guitar in. If you're coming through, bring your guitar. I'll take some time with you. You can try stuff. There's a nice cafe next to your workshop, and you can just try different things, and you'll help people find what's right for them, won't you? And that's really, I don't think anywhere in the world there's anything quite as special as that, where you can get completely fitted and you're allowed to try all these different things, and you will go out your way to make sure that people get the right thing for them and simplify what now I understand it. It's quite, you've got basically two lines of products, if you like, and then there's custom stuff around that, but it's, you can really help people get through it all and find the right thing. So I just want to say that, just in case anybody hears this that's maybe wondering about buying one, please, do go and
Well, I mean, to be honest with that, I'm doing what I'm doing with Diamond Bottlenecks. We've got to say, having people come in the shop, try that on, bring your guitar. Yeah. I'm just doing what back in the day when I was looking for slides, I never got any of that. It was just like a guy behind the counter gave me a blister pack with a tube in and said, "There's your slide." I'm thinking, slide. Was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
It didn't work.
No, and if you are playing an acoustic, with those thicker 12, 13, 16, 15 gauge strings or whatever, like you say, you need the heft.
Yes.
And also I think there's something about the kind of crystalline structure that just helps deal with the vibrations properly. So okay, so we're moving on. So like, so through the 2000s, the business is presumably growing. You're getting more stockists, you're getting more people online. So what's it like for you at this point then? So does it become like a kind of full-time thing ever, despite being a house husband? Like how does that kind of, how do you sort of juggle the two?
Well, it's been full-time for me since 2009.
So since 2009?
2009, it's been the full-time thing. Okay. Before then, it was like split 50-50 with the house husband, the house husband and the odd part-time job.
Yeah.
It was when the London Resonator Centre down in London around 2003, 2004. Ron and Mel Isaacs, they became my first big stockist.
Yes.
I mean, with places like the Acoustic Centre in Wapping, they were having like, say, 10 or 12 a month. The Acoustic Centre would order 30 or 40 at a time. And they could sell them all across the globe, because they were then really the place to buy resonator guitars and slides. And so it got to a point where my wife said to me, look, you either keep doing what you're doing, which is like 50% in the workshop making slides and 50% doing the part-time jobs, or you bite the bullet and do it full-time. He says, I'll back you, we'll go for it. But I knew that once I could do it full-time, that was it. I could make a success.
That's wonderful. So 2009, you start doing this. Like, how has it changed and grown the business?
What's changed a lot of it is social media.
In what way has that changed it then? So has that made you more accessible to people, or?
It's got our name. I mean, we were known before, but it's got our name around even more, because you'll see a posting on any of these Facebook or Instagram slide guitar groups.
Yeah.
And there'll always be a question. It probably comes up about once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I need a really good glass slide. Where do I go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll get the odd one or two naming other people, and then you'll get a plethora of Diamond Bottlenecks customers saying, go here.
That's amazing.
And that's where a lot of it comes from. Certainly for the past 5-6 years, that's where a lot of it's come from.
And you're very active on social media, aren't you? So I know you do, I think, in a genuinely good way, like support the sort of our little part of the guitar world. Like, I think you're very good at following people, supporting people, sharing stuff, and just even liking and commenting and all this stuff that just kind of in our kind of little world kind of really sort of tips it all along a lot. You know, I always see you liking and commenting on people's stuff and supporting.
I've been in a resonator guitar, a resonator slide player since the early 80s.
Yeah.
So this is our group, if you have to. I mean,
yeah, there's a whole bunch. And what's been really nice, I find, for, like, say, Instagram and Facebook and stuff, is that there's people all over the world that are really into this stuff. And what's really nice is how you connect. And sometimes, you know, I'll get like as an example, I'll get a follow, or the Washboard Resonators will get a follow of somebody, and their little picture's got like them holding a resonator. So you click on it, and then you look at all the likes on their pictures, and it's all the same people. And you just go, oh, how did I never even find you? But it just keeps, you know, wheels within wheels.
It is wheels within wheels.
Finding these people. And and what's, I think, great for social media, I mean, obviously it sounds like it's helped your business, but also it kind of, I think it's really good for, like, just the standard of playing. You realize who, you know, who's good and who's not, but also it makes you want to try and improve or learn, right. and try maybe try tunings or try techniques that you never tried before, because you just see it on Instagram, you go, oh, that's amazing, you know, or try a product like yours. So I think it all helps. So okay, so like you so it's grown because of social media, you're saying, and it's changed because of social media. So what does that mean? Is that good for your business in terms of, like, do you have sort of very awkward questions, and do you spend a lot of time every day dealing with queries from people and trying to unpick lies and myths? And is it a hard thing to deal with? Is there anything you can share now for anybody listening, to, like, any questions you don't want to be asked ever again?
We do get a lot. I'll tell you what we get a lot of, and it certainly is. Obviously, because it's such a small specialist business, we haven't got multiple thousands of shops.
No.
So what we tend to find is you've got other big companies. You'll see them all plastered all over social media, who sell glass slides, Pyrex glass slides. 9 times out of 10, they, for some reason, and to this day they still do it, they're the wrong size.
Mm-hmm.
You can get like a 17.5 mil or a ring size 7.5 mil slide. So if you're a little finger player like yourself, fantastic, that size fits, but it's too small. It's only something like 45 mil. So it doesn't cover all 6 strings. If you go up to the next product, it's like, as you see, you'll see small, medium or large.
That's it, yeah,
I'll try medium, which is longer. But that's 19.5 mil, ring size 9.5. But that's too loose. Where do I get something that amalgamates the two, the small size with a longer length? Nobody does it apart from us.
How do you actually fix that as well, Ian? Do you have various tubes in sizing from 0.5 mil difference then?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So you have a lot of stock in all the time then? We've always got stock in, and if we actually haven't got the piece, because we've got an on-site glass maker who resizes the tubes, someone may say, oh, I want a ruby red one, but I want one in 18 mil, and we've got a 20 mil. We'll just walk it down the shop, and they'll put it in their furnace and resize it for me. That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Perfect.
I wanted to reiterate what Martin said as well about just, like, from my experience in that shop as well, I think it's worth people going if you can get perfect fit, as you said as well. And I thought it was really cool that you just it's very unpretentious. It's just a little shop in this warehouse of other people who make amazing things out of glass, and you came out in your apron with, like, soot over your face or whatever, you know, and it's like, so I think it's just it's a great experience just to go to, you know. It's not a really fancy shop somewhere where you
it's old school. It's how it's like traditional.
Yeah,
it's a proper workshop. And Starbridge, which is a small town, you know, just away from Birmingham there in the Midlands in England, it is a glass centre in the country, isn't it? There's a couple of glass centres. There was sort of around the Stoke area where they used to make all the beer bottles back in the day, but then Starbridge has a special kind of thing. Yeah. Can you explain about Starbridge and how you're now part of that tradition?
Yeah, well, there were, back in the day, there were 2 main centres for glass. One was Sunderland, and the other one was Starbridge. Starbridge was originally the probably I mean, going back to the 1600s, I say the glass centre where we're based in Starbridge, half of that is the original Webb Corbett Glass Company, which was formed in 1680 or something like that. It goes back that far, yeah.
So you're working amongst kind of businesses that have been going, what's that, 400 years, 500 years?
400 years, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the majority of guys who work, certainly work with me, and in the other units are from the old Stuart Crystal Glassworks, again, which is from the 1700s. But as time's gone on, and obviously cheaper imports have come in from the Far East, it's now more, instead of like having, say, 30 odd big companies employing 100, 200 people, there's now 3 or 4 dozen of them. Again, like us, a few guys just making specialist stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it tends to be. It's still there, but it's just fragmented into smaller companies.
Yeah, and more kind of, I guess, like specialist sort of bespoke.
That's right.
High-end items and stuff, which is probably, the nature of like Western kind of industry, really, isn't it? It's more the way it is now, sadly. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just talk a little bit about how the workshop is set up, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the people that have used your slides and some of your experiences with that. So you are based in this glass centre, and there's all these businesses around you with their little units. So you are you work out of a unit. Is it Red House?
Red House Glasscrafts.
Red House Glasscrafts.
Yeah.
And you are the sole proprietor of Diamond Bottlenecks, is that right? Or do you employ people?
There's three of us. There's 3 of us in there.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Lamming, who is the proprietor, he owns the shop.
Okay.
He's the top glass restorer, glass repairer, probably in the UK.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's been
did
doing
not
it.
know that.
Yeah. Well, he's in his mid-60s now. He's been doing it since he was 15.
Wow.
So yeah. So if you've got any type of glass that needs repairing or restoring, he's the guy to go for. He's the proprietor of the shop. There's Nick Gritton, who's in there, who is master glass cutter. He does, whenever you go into, say, somewhere like Selfridges or Harrods, and you see the lead crystal goblets with all the beautiful cuts on, say from Royal Scott or someone like that, 9 times out of 10, he's cut that.
Wow.
And then there's me.
Wow.
And because all the machines in there are exactly what I need to do what I do, I'm the third person in there. So the other guy who works with me is a glassmaker named Ian Bamforth, who does all the resizing and makes the occasional tube for me. When we need that, as Jack was saying earlier, if you need a specific size, I'll take it down to Ian's glass shop, the Starbridge glass blowing studio, and he will resize it in their furnace for me. So he is basically part of it, although he's got his own little company.
So you kind of outsource him almost when you need him and things like that. So let's just what's the process then from start to finish, say, of getting one of these lead crystal slides? Like, how does, because you were telling me once about how you have to pick up some of the tubes. Some of the tubes are blown off site.
That's right.
Yeah. So just tell us how, sort of how one gets one of these. Like, what is the process like? Because they come on, and how long are the tubes that when they blow these tubes?
They're about 2.5, 3 foot long, something like that. When they get to us.
So they're blown. So how does that work? And how does that?
Well, what it is, the ones you've got there are lead crystal.
Yeah.
Lead crystal. Not a lot of glass makers from about the past 10 years have used lead crystal. Now they use non-leaded. So the guys, there's two main suppliers of the glass tubes. There's a guy, Steve Bradley, called Bradley Crystal, down in Barnstaple in Devon. He specialises in lead crystal. And the other one who makes the ones that you've got there, Steve mainly does the custom stuff, which is Lumsdale Glass in Lumsdale in Derbyshire, Anthony Russell Glass, or Lumsdale Glass as they're called now. They're the guys that make the long tubes for me. And then they blow the tubes, say specifically lead crystal, 24% lead to glass percentage. And then either I meet up with the glassmakers between the two places, or have a day out, have a day trip out, and go and pick them up myself.
Oh, very nice. Well, Derbyshire's beautiful, isn't it? It's very, very nice. Very, very nice part of the world.
Right so into the Derbyshire days.
So you go and get your tubes. So presumably then you wrap them up in, cotton wool in the back of your car. You drive them back. You bubble wrap. You're very careful over speed bumps, I imagine, in the potholes. And then you get them back. And then is it literally a case of just chopping them down into like various standard lengths and then polishing the ends? Is it that simple?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned earlier, each tube, from one tube you will get sections, and you can actually see through the tube. So you can basically think, well, that's wider than that section. So you can take one section off, which you pretty much certain is about, say, 20, 21 millimeters for big fingers. And then as you look through the tube, you'll see that it actually, the inside will narrow. The wall will get thicker. So you can actually cut that bit and measure it, and you've probably got 18 mil, 17 mil.
Yeah. So
it's basically just looking at the tube and working out which section will give you the piece you need.
Is that just part of the...
We cut them on the saw blades and then shape and polish them on all the machinery.
Is that just part of the manufacturing of the tubes that that the thickness changes?
Yeah.
Right.
So you tend to find that the larger internal diameter, because every tube, the outside diameter of every tube is pretty much the same. So the wider internal diameter will have the thinner wall, a 4 mil, 5 mil thick wall. As you go down to the size that you use, which is 17 mil, you'll find that you'll probably have a 6 or 7 mil thick wall, because although the outside is the same, the internal has got down, has narrowed.
Well, one of the astonishing things last time I was there is I have very kind of skinny fingers. And so for me, sometimes even some of your like slides that have a very tight, maybe even like 16 mil inner, which is quite tight, on a hot, sweaty day, I can be playing, getting a bit excited, and they can still kind of like start moving or pinging off a little bit if it's like a hot day. You did me one last time you were there. There was this whole long tube there, and I was explaining this, and you said, look at this piece of tube here. I can see that it's kind of conical on the inside. It's wider at one end and thinner at the other. And you said that, I think if we chop that down, that's going to be really snug. And I've never had a slide as perfect like this. This one I'm holding, this transparent one with the gold flexing now. It's probably about 16 at one end and about 14, maybe even 30 at the other end. And it stays on without it, but it's really easy to get on and off. But because it's thinner at the thin end of the finger, it won't ping off. It's perfect. And you chop that right out of like the middle of a piece for me, which is well awaited. I think me and Jack went and had breakfast or something at the cafe while you were doing it, but it was amazing and just incredible that you can even do that with this natural product, So so that's how the things are made, and then there's standard stuff off the line that have a ring size, aren't they? And then you can also do the custom thing if people can see it. So let's just talk now about, as we wrap this up, let's just talk a little bit about some of the people. So you start off saying that you listen to these players back in the day when you were getting into this stuff. Have you had any players that you were listening to and whose records you've owned that you've ended up dealing with and have been customers of yours? And if so, like, what's that like to actually be part of the process of people that are maybe heroes and people you like?
The one that stands out for me is Mark Knopfler.
Yeah, that's a big. That's probably why I never originally ordered one online and bothered you about custom, because I was scared. Because if he's making stuff for Mark Knopfler, Ian will be sitting on a throne with a crown on right now, because, made out of bottlenecks. But yeah, that is a big deal, isn't it?
Well, bizarrely, we didn't even know. We just got a call one December morning from his guitar tech to say he just broke his favourite slide. Can we get one shipped over to Des Moines in Iowa as soon as possible? I'm saying, well, probably not. No. Does he use our slides? And this guy, his guitar tech, said he's used them for 8 years. Nobody ever told me.
Wow. So how does that even work then? Is it just simply the case that maybe his guitar tech went into one of these places in London, or he went in himself and chose some? That's
exactly what it was. So Glenn, his guitar tech, went into a shop and saw these slides, bought a couple, realised that they'd actually fit Mark Knopfler, took them into his studio, and he tried it on and said, "That's the best thing I've ever used. I need more."
He's right. Okay, so you had no idea about that all those years?
I had no clue. So the first thing we know is when his guitar tech said, "I've just broke his favourite slide. I'm in trouble. Help.
that's sort of nice. So that's amazing, is it? So you must have been buying Dire Straits albums, and then next thing you know, he's got your bits of glass on his finger. That's amazing.
Well, I did say to his guitar tech, I said, well, how come I've never heard him play lots of slide before? And his guitar tech said, well, he does play slide, but he plays more now because he's using yours.
Wow, I mean, that's amazing. So since then, have you had any kind of actual contact with somebody like that? Any emails or any kind of thank yous or anything like that? Or is it just the way those worlds work?
Well, we did some special ones for him, which was sent down. But normally, when you're talking global megastars, you talk to their people. Their people.
Yeah, of course you do. Well,
people.
This is something I'm finding. The more and more I speak to kind of resonator people, is that you hear all these stories about these big stars, but it's that there are I don't know what you call them, handlers, roadies, that kind of handle a lot of that kind of stuff. But it's just amazing to think that even somebody like that, I mean, just a great player, a great songwriter, ridiculously a guitar genius, and like I say, somebody you must have loved, is using your stuff. And he lived in Leeds for a while as well, which is where we're based. So it's like, resonator land up here, But we play in the Grove sometimes where he used to play and stuff. So it's nice to know, that's all going on. So yeah, what about other people then? Because even the other day I was on your website, because we were talking about something the other day. I went on your website and I saw Derick Trucks using one of your slides, which I didn't even know was a thing.
Yes, that's right. That was one of my customers. He went to see Derick Trucks play.
Yeah.
But Derick Trucks isn't really renowned for using a resonator.
No, he uses one of the medicine bottles, doesn't he? And plays electric.
On the electric, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I just saw him. I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Yeah.
And this guy just said he took his resonator, his dobro, to a Derick Trucks gig. Derick Trucks came outside just to have a noodle on it, and he said, try this. And it was one of our bottleneck slides.
Isn't that fantastic?
He sent me the film. He said, would you like this? Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. And then, so there's other people like in the resonator world, there are certain names that go around that are like the big kind of names in resonator playing. So there's, like they have signature slides with you. So are there any of those names you want to talk about and stuff, and what it's like?
Well, I suppose, obviously there's yourself. There's
I don't think
there's Michael Messer.
Michael Messer's got one, hasn't he? And then like Mike Dowling, I adore his playing.
Mike Dowling, he uses the Matus bottlenecks.
Yeah, Doug McLeod.
Yeah, he's got his own signature model. Yeah, that's.
I know Catfish Keith. Like when I was getting to resonators, I really got into a lot of Catfish Keith stuff. I think he's got an incredible right hand and feel and timing. He's just an incredible musician. He's got like signature slides, but he also because he deals in nationals, doesn't he? He actually buys. He was telling me he buys quite a lot of stuff off you. Is that right?
Yeah. He takes two. He's got one which is called the signature slide, which has got his name engraved, because we can engrave these slides. So we've got his name engraved down the side, which is what they call the double cut with the lip gone.
Yeah.
Or he does the cheaper one, which is the normal one with the lip still intact.
Yeah.
And he sells those off his website, and obviously merchandise tables as well. He takes them to whenever we get to do gigs again.
Yeah.
He'll put them on his merch tables.
So that's nice. I didn't know that. So even Catfish Keith, when he's going around gigging, he's got a merch table and he's flogging regular bottlenecks. Jack, there we go.
Okay, Martin Roper model.
There you go, Martin. I can see Martin Roper.
They won't fit anywhere with midget hands, but yeah.
The last thing I want is a bottleneck slide with my name on. I mean, I could probably. I'm not. I think if that happens to me, I think I'd be. I don't know. I think it's time to hide it. I mean, I'd have Yorkshire Lad on it or Specky Four Eyes or something. That'd be fine.
Well, we did one for a good friend of mine called Chris Martin, who's up in. He lives in Heddon in Leeds.
Ironically, that's his old guitar just over my shoulder there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's got a model which is called the Yorkshire Special.
Oh, he's already done it.
It's got engraved on the side of it is how much?
How much?
Yes.
That's I think Jack has a lot of ribs me a lot about.
Well, I won't say about the barber story from just 2 days ago. We'll leave it.
My Yorkshireness and spending money and how much, you know.
How
do
much?
we really need to spend that on this? Like even now making these podcasts, like we have to buy a special Zoom package, and I was like, do we really have to do that? Do we really have to pay for Zoom to talk to people? Is that where we're at? And Jack's like, yes, we do. You cheapskate. Right, there we go. So I mean, I don't know, like that's just incredible. I mean, just incredible story. There's so much that you've told us today that I didn't know about what you do. I just thought you made really great bottleneck slides, but actually what we've got here is like an incredible story about falling into it, and then running with it once you've got it, and really making a world-class product. So that's just what a fantastic life, and what a fantastic kind of business that is. Like, you must be really proud of like what you've achieved. Do you ever look back and think, how did that happen? Like, this is odd.
Well, I mean, it's like a lot, as I said earlier, you get the big conglomerate slide companies that do 3 sizes and they just send them out. But even now, after doing them all these years, I mean, decades to be honest, and even now, I'll do one slide and I'll pick it up and look at it and I'll think, nice one, you did well. And that's still, to this day, that's what keeps me going. When I pack it up and take it to the post office, I'm thinking, that's a nice slide, he'll enjoy that.
Oh, that's really nice. So it sounds like you're still genuinely like happy to sort of like help musicians and make their playing situation and also make something that you're proud of, that you know is good quality and it's helping. And it's fantastic in these days, as we were talking about earlier, that it's fantastic that in these days of like lots of Far East production and people trying to the big companies trying to make the maximum profits and sell their products, that here you are in Britain, the British craftsman making a handmade product at the highest quality, that actually if you look at the prices are still, I think, incredibly good value. And this is me.
You think that?
And if I think that, well, no, I pay, I pay for these when I go, I pay and stuff. It's like, but it's fantastic. And I think it's amazing that, you could find that niche and still, keep a great business going in Britain. You could probably even farm this out and probably make bigger profits, but you wouldn't want to do that, I guess.
No,
make it yourself and know it's right.
Back in the early days, so when I was involved with Brett, who literally kicked Diamond Bottlenecks off with me in the workshop. And he said, there's 2 things you want to do. He said, 1, always keep it controllable. Always stay controllable. He says, don't promise 1,000 when you know you can't make 1,000. Says, and the other thing linked to that, he said, don't be the person to make the most. Be the person who makes the best.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me for 20 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Don't make the most, make the best.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. Well, Ian, I don't know, we've covered it all. That's amazing. Thank you so much. What we do, we've just got sort of some questions that we ask everybody just to sort of put them on the spot. So we'll ask you those questions, then we'll say goodbye. So question number 1 is, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give my younger self? Do you know, I'm not, I can't think of anything like that.
Well, you're obviously perfect then, aren't you?
I think you should have.
That's embarrassing now. I think
you should have started the business earlier. Then you would have been, you had the desire.
As Mark Messer has said to me for all these years I've known him, he said you were just doing the right thing in the right place at the right time.
I mean, literally, like, you've just...
That's what it was.
You had that conversation with Rosman, where just the right guy was stood next to you, and it's like, right. It just shows, doesn't it, in many ways that, like, it's like you've just got to do stuff, and the more you do stuff, I guess, like those chances, that go up. There's a question here which is sort of an odd question for you. It's meant to be, we speak to a lot of musicians generally, but this is, how would you explain what you do to a 5-year-old?
To a 5-year-old, I'd just say, if you're passionate about something, say you're passionate about wanting to learn slide guitar, if you can, just get the best you can get.
Yes.
And if it means waiting a few years until you've got the money to buy it, or you know where it is and you can buy it, buy the best.
Yes.
I've always said to a lot of slide players, there would be a lot more slide players in the world if guitar shops sold decent slides. Because even back in the day with me, you would go to a guitar shop, say, I need a slide, and you'd be passed a blister pack with something that's way too big, way too long, doesn't sound right. And you'd think, well, I'm not very good at this. Mm. You probably are good at it. You've got the wrong gear.
I agree. I've got my, I agree. I'm going off on that, but I've got my metal one that I bought in a shop in Huddersfield in about 96, 97. I think it might be even like a Dunlop branded one, but I was trying to play on my acoustics with this, and I just couldn't make it work. I didn't know. So this went away for years, and then it came out, in my mid-20s, and then my slide playing didn't really start working properly until I got this green one, this thick walled thing. You can do stuff with these heavyweight green ones. You use like less moving, and you can do things you couldn't normally do. And the tone is massive and sustain is massive on an acoustic instrument. And it's like, now we all know, but it's you can do stuff you couldn't do with your product, which is amazing.
That's right. Well, as I said, Diamond Bottlenecks is pretty much solely geared towards resonator and acoustic players, simply because with electric guitars and electric gear, you can use pretty much anything, because you can put in a compressor pedal, an overdrive pedal, any kind of pedal into the line, go into your Marshall amplifier and jack it up to 10. Yeah. You could use a big pen for a slide. It would work. Resonators, you've got your fingers, your strings, and a slide, and that's it. It's
an acoustic thing, and the thick strings, and to make the strings work, it's really important. So, there's a couple more questions. What this question is, I can't wait to get the answer for this one. Who would play you in the film of your life? Come on now, let's see what you're all about.
I could have said Mr. Bean, but that's
Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean.
Yeah, I'll probably say Mr. Bean.
Do you drive a Mini?
Sorry?
I said, do you drive a Mini?
I did many years ago.
Jack does.
Everyone.
Yeah, it's I don't know if Bruce Willis or somebody like that. I don't know.
Probably something like that with not much hair.
No, just a strong character. And then the last one is how do you like your tea?
I can easily admit to that. I haven't drunk tea in 25 years. I'm a coffee man.
There we go. This is fascinating answers to this question when we speak to other people. So there we go. Wonderful. Well, look, I think we've covered it all there, and I just think it's been amazing. So thank you again for sharing your life and your way into this, and thank you for making the world of resonator guitar playing better single-handedly. Thank you. Well, I mean, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You've helped me. You've taken us in. You've helped us. You've helped what we do. And I really appreciate it. And I've spoken to loads of other players over the last couple of years that use your products and feel the same. So thank you for everything.
So if anybody wants to see anything more, just go onto our Diamond Bottlenecks website. It's all on there.
It's there.
The glass, the product range, everything.
Excellent. Yeah. So I thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ian. Take care.
Cheers, Jack. Take care. Bye, Martin.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Washboard Resonators Present.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and leave a comment.
And to support our band, please sign up to the mailing list. You'll find the link in the show notes and on the website.